Afternoon all, I have a very exciting Nakamura game to show you from 2003, the Torneo Continental Americano tournament. Playing white was Gennadi Sagalchik. So d4, knight to f6, knight c3, d5, and now we see bishop g5, e6, and white plays e4, and it starts to look like a transposition from a French defence. This could have come from a French defence. Bishop b4 is played now, and this is generally called, I believe, the McCutcheon variation. Knight ge2, we see d takes e4, a3, bishop goes back, and now bishop takes f6, giving up the dark square bishop. Will white have issues on the dark squares later? And does black really want to take with the bishop? Well, actually, he plays g takes f6, which is reminiscent of the Burn variation, which, as many of you know, I often play in Blitz. Especially in the past, this was one of my favourites, because black can get compensation on the g file. Black can fianchetto this bishop sometimes. We see knight takes e4. Now an immediate f5, which is interesting. Without the knight being on f3, perhaps e5 isn't such a problem as it usually is. The knight on 4 goes to c3. And white might be threatening d5, which will cause some structural damage, potentially. The brakes are put on d5 with c6. Now g3, which seems logical. The bishop is hemmed in by the knight on e2. Why not go to this diagonal instead? b6, bishop g2, bishop b7. And now queen d3. Okay, in this position, knight d7. So black is aiming, perhaps, to castle queenside like this, and then strike later with c5. Knight d1, queen c7. c4, renewing the idea of the strategic break d5, and this is often very good in the Burn variation, but it's sometimes at a downside. The dark squares of white's position, like especially c5 and e5, might be weakened. It has to be timed well. Black castles queenside here, knight e3, so white is preparing, it seems, to break d5 at some point. King b8, queen c2, getting out of the way of this rook. Bishop d6, as though now f4 might be on the cards. And against this, white plays f4 himself. So it looks as though white's having all the fun for the moment. Whereas black's counterplay, the double pawns here, the lock on e5, d5 coming up. Except maybe these dark squares like c5 could be used, so it still might not be the right time for a d5 here. Black plays h5, concerning white now with h4 to dissolve this isolated pawn and get some pressure. h4 locking down that. Knight f6. Now white castles queenside. A lot of pieces do seem poised for playing d5 at some point. Now Nakamura plays c5 himself, encouraging positively even more d5, which is now finally played. Also, the bishops were temporarily eyeing each other here. White wasn't interested in bishop takes b7. d5. Okay, one of the points, if this pawn ever takes, these pawns are completely fractured. Nakamura plays rook h e8, preparing to target perhaps these two knights tactically. That knight on e2 gets out of the way, and now knight b5 seems to be on the cards. This is parried with a6. A slight concern about a6 is this slightly loosening b6. We see rook he1, and now rook g8. Okay, in this position it seems white's defence is okay with knight f1, also putting the pressure on the e file and this e6 pawn. But now we see a very interesting idea. I wonder if you can guess what Nakamura played in this position, if I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, he plays an exchange sack, rook takes g3, knight takes g3, bishop takes f4 check. So for the exchange, he's taken also two pawns, but these are double pawns. But white's central control and grip on e5 has been removed. Black's dark square pressure has been intensified and might be winning another pawn here shortly. White doesn't bother trying to defend h4. Plays rook e2, just keeping the pressure on e6. And actually Nakamura protects e6 now. And now White tries to play dynamically, offering Nakamura the chance to take this h4 pawn by playing rook d3. But the point of this is now that knight a4 is pretty dangerous, with the immediate threat of knight takes b6 and rook b3. And Nakamura is not that greedy to take the pawn. He plays actually bishop e5, and this offers black a lot more options now against knight a4, which is still played. King a7, and White still goes in for a kind of attack with pieces. Rook b3, so d6 is under fire. It's protected now with knight d7. Okay, and now we see bishop f3, as though White's interested in taking this pawn, maybe running with this pawn at some point. Rook g8, ignoring that, so it's black's turn to try and sack the h-pawn. Will White dare to take this? What is going on here? Both sides are trying to play dynamically, offering up material. Black is technically the exchange down, but for 2 pawns. Okay, so White grabs a pawn back, so only exchange down for a pawn. E takes d5. Nakamura doesn't mind the fracturing here. He's got a dangerous idea of perhaps just taking and then perhaps b5. This knight's a little bit misplaced. We see c takes d5, and now b5 here attacking the knight. So White's pieces are being repulsed now. Knight c3, now c4. But this offers White a tactical shot, this move, or does it? White's rook is running out of squares. White actually plays rook takes b5. So if a takes, of course, we have a fork of king and queen. In this position, Nakamura, though, plays bishop takes c3. So he'll be able to take that rook without any problem. But now White plays a forcing move d6, getting the rook out like this, just in time. Has White escaped the worst of things through this tactical chaos? Queen takes d6. The rook now moves with rook takes f5, winning a pawn in the process. But don't give Nakamura any forcing moves. He plays check, king a2, and can you spot now the move which Nakamura finds in this position? If I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Clue, it's a really crunching final move, game ender in this position. A forcing move. Can you spot it? A few more seconds, perhaps? Okay. Think of outrageous forcing moves in this position and you might find it. Queen takes a3. Check. White's being mated with this coincidental bishop on c3. Coincidental from all that fireworks earlier. If king takes a3, then rook a1 is mate. If b takes a3, then rook a1 is still mate with the bishop. A game ender. White resigned. So this was a kind of game opening which resembled a little bit, had some traits of a burn variation with the g takes f6 dynamism. But Nakamura showed a great dark square strategy culminating in great dark square related tactics, mating the white king with a potentially dark square move with rook a1 at the end, which wasn't to be played. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.